Welcome to Rare Breed Brotherhood. Sometimes the strongest men are the ones who had no choice but to survive in silence. A brutal childhood does something to a boy, not just emotionally, but mentally, spiritually, even physically. It forces him to grow in places most people never even touch. While others were learning how to ride bikes and play games, he was learning how to keep secrets, suppress pain, and navigate chaos without breaking. That kind of upbringing doesn't create a social butterfly. It creates someone different. Quiet, watchful, calculated. You start seeing through people early on. You stop chasing affection and begin observing the patterns no one else notices. Not because you wanted to, but because you had to. And eventually, you stop looking for belonging altogether. You start walking your own path. That's not rebellion. That's survival. You are not cold because you want to be. You're just done giving your warmth to people who never earned it. You are not distant because you lack love. You're just tired of people confusing your silence for weakness. What you are is something very few people understand. You are a Sigma male, a man shaped by pain, but not owned by it. This path is not for everyone, but for those who had no safety net, no soft landing, no one to come home to. This path made you into a force. You walk alone, not because you're lost, but because you know exactly who you are. And that in itself is power. Let's dive in deeper, brothers. Number 1. They learn to parent themselves way too early, and not in some poetic coming-of-age way. This is the kind of early that makes a boy sit in the dark at night trying to figure out what he did wrong when adults around him act like he doesn't matter. It's the kind of early where a 9-year-old knows how to cook his own dinner, calm his little sister down during arguments, and hide his tears because crying only makes things worse. When no one shows up to emotionally protect him, something inside flips. He stops asking, stops hoping. And then, slowly, he starts stepping into roles that should never belong to a child. He becomes his own comforter, his own problem solver, his own disciplinarian. You'll see him doing things like checking if the front door is locked every night, making sure the lights are off to save electricity, worrying about bills even though he barely understands what they mean. Most people see this kind of boy and think he's mature for his age. But what they don't see is the heavy weight he's carrying behind that calm face. The kind of pressure that doesn't let him be a kid. Ever. This self-parenting shapes a Sigma male in a very specific way. It teaches him that depending on people is a gamble. So he builds himself, piece by piece, quietly. While others look outside for help or attention, he looks inward. Not because it's fun, but because it's the only place that ever felt safe. Think about that kid in school who always kept to himself, who didn't ask for help even when he was clearly struggling. That was him learning how to rely on his own mind when no one else had the time or care to guide him. And that habit doesn't just fade with age. It turns into a lifestyle, one built on discipline, awareness, and emotional independence. He becomes a man who doesn't panic in chaos because he's been living in it for years. And when life throws challenges at him, he doesn't break. He's already been through worse. And he handled it all by parenting himself. Number 2, they kill their inner child to survive. And no, that's not just a metaphor. It's real. That softness, that playful curiosity, that innocent part of a boy that wants to laugh, be held, and feel safe, it gets buried. Not because he wants to lose it, but because holding on to it hurts too much. Imagine being a little boy who reaches out for comfort and gets ignored, or worse, punished. Imagine showing emotions and being told to toughen up, or being mocked for crying. Over time, that child learns the rules. Softness gets you hurt. Vulnerability makes you a target. So he makes a decision without even realizing it. He locks that part of himself away. He starts walking around like everything is fine. He gets quiet, detached. People around him might say, he's just reserved, or he's strong for his age, but the truth is, he's grieving the part of himself he had to give up. That light in his eyes, it dims. That loud laugh, it disappears. He doesn't trust joy because it never stays. And love? That feels like a trap. This is how the Sigma male is born. He learns to rely on logic over emotion, strategy over sentiment. He becomes the type of man who doesn't flinch in the face of chaos, not because he's fearless, but because he's already survived emotional war zones others couldn't even imagine. You might meet him years later, calm and composed, maybe even intimidating. But what you won't see is the grave he built inside himself, the one where his inner child lies buried, because it was either that or constantly being broken by a world that never gave him a chance to be soft. This is not emotional coldness, this is survival intelligence. This is how boys from brutal childhoods make it out. And when you wonder why he doesn't cry, why he's so careful with his emotions, just know it's not that he can't feel, it's that he once did and it almost destroyed him. Number 3. They develop an X-ray vision for human motives. And it's not because they're paranoid. It's because they had to learn the hard way that not everyone means what they say. When you grow up in a place where words are often used as weapons, where promises are broken, affection is conditional, and love is a game, you stop taking things at face value. That boy learns early that "I love you" can come with strings attached, that apologies don't always mean change, that someone smiling at you doesn't always mean they're safe. So over time, he stops listening to what people say, he watches what they do, he studies patterns like a detective. If someone says they care but only show up when it's convenient, he takes note. If someone talks a lot about loyalty but runs at the first sign of discomfort, he files that away. He doesn't confront or react right away. He observes, quietly, calmly, like a surgeon with a scalpel. People around him might think he's too quiet, too guarded, maybe even cold, but he's not cold. He's calculating. Not in a manipulative way, but in a protective one. He knows how it feels to be lied to by people you trusted, so now his instincts are sharp. His eyes don't just look at you, they read you. Think of the boy who learned to predict his parents' moods just by how they walked into a room, or the one who could tell when someone was about to lie before a word came out. That survival skill doesn't go away, it evolves. And that's what makes Sigma males so different. They don't fall for surface-level charm, they don't jump at flattery. They wait, they listen with their eyes. Because once you've been burned by the people who were supposed to protect you, you stop taking people at their word. You start seeing them for who they really are, even when they try to hide it. Number 4, they stop asking to be loved and start demanding to be respected. Not because they don't crave love, of course they do. But after growing up in an environment where love came with rules, expectations, and guilt, they learned something painful. Love can be used to control. As a boy, he might have been told, "I love you," right before getting ignored, or only heard it when he did something right. Maybe love was dangled in front of him like a prize he had to earn, not something freely given. And eventually he started to realize that love like that doesn't feel safe, it feels like a trap. That's when the shift happens. He stops trying to be lovable and starts focusing on being respected. Because respect isn't based on how someone feels about you. It's based on how you carry yourself. It's rooted in boundaries, in values, in self-control. Respect is earned, not handed out, not taken away on someone's bad day. He becomes the kind of man who doesn't beg for affection. He doesn't chase approval. He would rather stand alone in silence than be surrounded by people who only offer love when it benefits them. And the truth is, once someone truly respects you, the way they love you changes too. It becomes steady, clean, without games. So when people say he's distant or too independent, they don't see the full story. They don't know he's been through a lifetime of emotional tug-of-war. He's not cold. He's just done being manipulated by love that isn't real. This is why Sigma males value respect so deeply. Because in a world that once tried to make them earn love by shrinking themselves, respect is the one thing they never had to compromise for. And they've learned. Real love without respect is nothing more than emotional decoration. Number 5, they see failure as routine, not an identity. When you're a boy who grows up without cheerleaders, without pats on the back or gold stars for trying, you start to notice something. Failure doesn't destroy you, it just becomes part of life. While other kids break down after being told they're not good enough, he just shrugs and moves on. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's been hearing that kind of stuff since day one. He wasn't praised for effort. No one clapped when he tried. When he fell short, there was no one to say, "It's okay, try again." So he stopped expecting applause. And once that emotional safety net is gone, you either crumble or build your own armor. He chose armor. Failure stopped feeling like the end of the world. It started feeling like Tuesday. Another lesson. Another rep. He learned how to take the hit, process it in silence, and keep moving without falling apart. That's not coldness. It's mental conditioning. Think of a boy who keeps failing tests and doesn't get scolded because no one even checked, or the one who tried to make his parents proud but only ever got silence in return. Over time, he stopped tying his worth to success. And ironically, that made him stronger. Now as a man, he doesn't fear failure. He expects it. And that expectation doesn't weaken him. It frees him. He tries things most people won't because he's not scared of looking stupid. He's not waiting for validation. He's not crushed by a no or a loss. This is what sets Sigma males apart. They've failed privately so many times that public setbacks don't shake them. They've learned how to rebuild from nothing without anyone's help. And once you get used to standing back up on your own, failure no longer defines you. It refines you. Number 6, they operate with emotional minimalism. Not because they're cold or heartless, but because they had to learn how to survive emotional chaos without losing themselves. Growing up, their world was loud, unpredictable. Maybe emotions were thrown around like weapons, shouting one minute, silence the next. Maybe they had to play peacekeeper in a house full of tension, or maybe they were ignored altogether, left to deal with their feelings in isolation. Either way, they figured out fast that showing too much emotion wasn't safe. It invited judgment, misunderstanding, or punishment, so they adapted. They learned to streamline their emotions like a military operation. Quick, quiet, controlled. When something hurt, they didn't explode, they stored it. When they were confused or afraid, they didn't reach for comfort, they solved it internally. Feelings became something to process privately, not display publicly. This is why Sigma males don't overshare. You won't catch them pouring their heart out to everyone, not because they don't feel, but because they've seen how people misuse vulnerability. They don't overspeak either. Every word is calculated, intentional. They'd rather say one real thing than talk for hours just to fill the silence. And overcommitment, that's off the table. They don't promise things they don't mean. They've seen what happens when people overextend and underdeliver. They'd rather be steady and quiet than loud and unreliable. It's not about emotional distance, it's about precision. They've trained themselves to carry heavy emotions without letting them spill everywhere. Like a soldier with limited resources, they ration their energy, guard their space, and move with clarity. To some, it may look like detachment, but what you're really seeing is years of emotional training, built from a childhood where feelings had to be managed carefully, or not at all. Sigma males don't waste emotion. They deliver it with purpose, and that's what makes them so steady in a world that constantly swings from one extreme to another. Number 7. They develop a secret war chest of pain. From the outside, they look calm, collected, in control. But underneath that surface is a deep, tightly sealed vault filled with every heartbreak, betrayal, disappointment, and insult they've ever endured. Not one of those wounds is forgotten. They just learned not to wear them on their sleeves. See, when they were younger, showing pain only made things worse. If they cried, they were told to stop. If they spoke up, they were silenced. So they stopped expressing it. But they never stopped feeling it. They just tucked it away, storing it like fuel for a fire that never dies. This is the part people don't understand about Sigma males. That calm exterior isn't peace, it's strategy. They've mastered the art of staying quiet while carrying the weight of things that would break most people. Instead of leaking their pain everywhere, they convert it. Every moment of rejection becomes drive. Every betrayal sharpens their focus. Every memory of being overlooked pushes them harder toward their goals. Think about the guy who never got picked, never got praised, never got helped, but still kept going. Not because he had support, but because he had something to prove, not to the world but to himself. That pain didn't turn into bitterness. It became ammunition. And here's the thing, that war chest never runs out. They don't use all of it at once. They pull from it when things get hard, when they are exhausted, when they feel like giving up. That hidden pain reminds them what they've survived, what they've built, what they refuse to return to. So, While others burn out or crumble when life gets heavy, they reach into that chest. Not for comfort, but for fire, for grit, for that quiet, intense energy that only comes from a lifetime of silently carrying everything they were never allowed to express. That's not weakness, that's their power source. Number 8, they stop relying on authority figures. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, every time someone who's supposed to guide them drops the ball. When parents break promises, when teachers ignore their struggles, when religious leaders preach one thing and live another, it chips away at the belief that anyone really has the answers. As a boy, he might have looked up to these figures, hoping for structure, protection, or just a little bit of honesty. But when they let him down, and they often do, he learns to stop waiting. He learns to stop hoping someone else will come and show him how to live, how to succeed, how to be a man. That's when something changes. He stops asking, "What should I do?" and starts asking, "What can I build on my own?" He becomes his own blueprint, his own teacher, his own compass. He studies people quietly, not to follow them, but to learn what not to become. And this doesn't mean he's rebellious or anti-authority for the sake of it. It means he's done giving blind trust. He respects results, not titles. He follows logic, not loud voices. If someone earns his respect through actions, he'll listen. But if they expect obedience just because of their position, he checks out. This is the Sigma mindset. Independence not just in lifestyle, but in thought. He doesn't care about tradition for tradition's sake. He doesn't need permission to move forward. He leads himself, not because it's trendy, but because every leader he was supposed to rely on proved they couldn't handle the responsibility. So now, when life gets tough, he doesn't look up. He looks within. Not because he thinks he's better than everyone else, but because he knows from experience no one is coming to save him. And honestly, he's okay with that. Because when you become your own foundation, nobody can take that away from you. Number 9, they stop believing in rescue. At some point in their early life, something just clicks. It's not dramatic. There's no announcement. Just a slow, painful realization. No one is coming. No one's going to show up to fix the mess, calm the storm, or pull them out of the hole. Maybe it started with being left to deal with something alone, sitting in silence after a meltdown, waiting for a parent who never showed up, or being promised support that never came. At first, they hope. Then they wait. Then they break. But instead of staying broken, they begin to build. They stop expecting rescue. And in its place, they build a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't beg for help, doesn't cry for attention, and doesn't lean on others unless it's absolutely necessary. This is where the Sigma mindset really starts to take shape. Because once you stop depending on anyone to save you, you start designing a life that doesn't require saving. You learn how to fix your own problems. You teach yourself skills. You manage your emotions. You get used to being your own backup plan. Think about the guy who gets bad news and doesn't fall apart. He just nods, adjusts, and gets to work. That's not coldness, that's experience. That's a man who stopped waiting for a handout and became his own rescue team. It's not that he doesn't want connection. He just refuses to build his life on the hope that someone else will carry the weight for him. He's not bitter, he's just real. And that realism, it gives him freedom. Because once you let go of the fantasy that someone is going to come save you, you stop wasting time and start saving yourself. That's not isolation, that's power. That's the quiet strength of a Sigma male who knows the only person he can truly count on is himself. Number 10, they're slow to open, but fierce when they do. Sigma males are not quick to trust, and it's not because they're antisocial or guarded for no reason. It's because they've seen what happens when the wrong people get too close. They've been betrayed by family, overlooked by friends, or let down by people they gave their hearts to. So now they move with caution. When they meet someone new, they don't instantly connect. They study, they observe, they listen more than they speak. They're looking for consistency, not charisma, for honesty, not performance, because they know that trust is not something you give away. It's something you build slowly and carefully. But here's the part people often miss. Once a Sigma male lets you in, it's real, it's deep, It's all in. There's no halfway. If he decides you're worth it, you get access to the side of him most people will never see. The soft side, the loyal side, the fiercely protective part of him that would go to war for you. He becomes the kind of person who remembers your smallest details, who shows up without being asked, who stands beside you when everyone else disappears. But that kind of loyalty doesn't come cheap. You have to earn it, and if you break it, there are no second chances. That door, it doesn't swing back open. Once it's shut, it's not just locked, it's welded shut. Because to him, betrayal isn't just about hurt. It's about safety. And once you prove you can't be trusted with his vulnerability, he will never hand it to you again. So yes, he's slow to open. But that's because his trust isn't casual, it's sacred. If you're one of the rare few who earns it, honor it, because behind that quiet nature is someone who will walk through fire for you. But only if you never give him a reason to close that door again. Number 11. They live for purpose, not popularity. See, Sigma males didn't grow up craving the spotlight because they learned early how fake it can be. Childhood taught them that attention comes and goes. One day people notice you, the next day they don't. One moment you're praised, and the next you're forgotten. So they stopped chasing applause. They stopped caring about who's watching. Instead, they started focusing on something deeper, something that doesn't fade when the lights go out. Purpose. They're not trying to impress a crowd or win approval. They're trying to build something that matters, a legacy, a standard, a life that feels solid and honest even when no one's clapping for it. While others are glued to social media likes and chasing validation, the Sigma male is tuned into something internal, something private. He could be successful and you'd never know. He might be doing big things quietly behind the scenes. Why? Because his drive doesn't come from being seen. It comes from knowing he's doing exactly what he was meant to do. You'll never see him molding himself to fit a trend or changing his values just to gain followers. That's not his world. He would rather walk alone in silence with meaning than be surrounded by noise with no direction. This is what makes him different. He doesn't move for attention. He moves with intention. Every decision is tied to purpose, not popularity. And that's why he stands out, ironically. In a world obsessed with being noticed, he's the one person quietly doing what actually matters. Not because someone's watching, but because he refuses to waste his life being someone he's not. In conclusion, the boy who had to survive without love becomes the man who leads without needing it. Not every Sigma male was born with a sharp edge. Many were carved by pain, silence, and the brutal lessons of their childhood. These weren't just hard years. They were years that demanded too much, too soon. Years that forced a boy to grow without guidance, to feel without comfort, and to rise without applause. But here's what matters most. He didn't let that darkness define him. He used it. Instead of becoming bitter, he became precise. Instead of seeking attention, he sought meaning. While others were taught how to follow, he was taught how to survive. And from that survival came a rare kind of strength. If you're that man, if you've ever had to swallow your voice just to keep the peace, carry your pain in silence, or teach yourself lessons no one else would, then you already know what it means to be a Sigma male. You don't need noise to feel strong. You don't need permission to take action. You live by something deeper than acceptance. You live by truth. Yes, you were forged in unfairness, but the result? You are grounded, independent, and impossible to manipulate. You've seen behind the curtain, so you don't fall for surface-level anything. Not love, not success, not people. Never forget this. Your story gave you an edge, but it also gave you wisdom. And in a world full of copies, you are the original, quiet, focused, unshakable, not because life has been easy, but because you made it through what others never talk about. That makes you more than strong. It makes you dangerous, in the best way possible. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay you. Thank you watching.